When my wife was in college, she owned a Mustang. Unfortunately, that car is long gone. But today we'll create a little nostalgia by building two 1969 Mustang Fastback models. I started cutting with the two half-inch sides for the Mustangs. I would normally use a number 7 blade for half-inch material, but I had a used number 9 Pegasus modified geometry blade already in the scroll saw, so I decided to use it. If the blade wasn't as worn as I thought and was cutting too aggressively, I could always slow down the motor speed. The curves on these pieces are gentle and there are no inside cuts, so the larger blade size is not a problem. Scroll saw blades are expendable and they're not expensive, but there's no reason not to get as much useful life out of them as possible. I began the cut at the top rear of the car's side. I prefer to start at a sharp angle if there is one, but if not, any outside place that will be reachable for touch-up sanding will work. When you start in a curve, you can sometimes have a little rust spot when you end the cut if you're slightly to one side or the other of the cut line. It's good to have that point accessible so you can easily go back later and smooth it out. The main part of the Mustang's body is 1.5 inches thick, so I'm going to switch from a number 9 to a number 12 Pegasus modified geometry blade. I'm going to make the interior cut first. I drilled a pilot hole for that near one of the corners, then followed the cut line all along the shape. You may notice that the pattern shows where to drill for the axles, and it calls for 1/4 inch holes. I am doubling the size of the car, and I will be using 1.5 inch tires that use a 1/4 inch axle, so I'll be drilling 5/16 holes for the axles. I find myself putting extra pressure on the blade when I'm cutting thick material like this, probably to speed up cutting. It's a bad habit because it causes the blade to flex and I don't get a 90-degree cut. I know that's what happened here because I was unable to push the waste piece out through the bottom. I could only push it up from the bottom out through the top. Obviously, the next step is to make the outside cut for the Mustang body. There's nothing new to explain here, it's just a matter of following the cut line. The curves are gentle and there's no problem making even the tightest turns at the front with a number 12 blade. And there you go. That's the inside. I've got to leave the pattern on for now until I drill those holes. But that's the outside, and then these will go like undone like this. And that's all the, well, that's most, those are the biggest parts right there. You've made this model before, and adding the steering wheel after you've glued on the sides is almost impossible. The plans just show a thin circle for the steering wheel, but I decided to give it a little bit more detail than that. I had a steering wheel, but it was too big. At the size I made this car, a 1 inch circle was needed, so I chose a thin wheel to give it a little more depth. I glued the wheel in place with some white glue, then set them aside with the glue to dry. I decided to take the sides of the car over to the router table to do a roundover. I already had a small radius bit mounted, and it gave me the curve I wanted. I was careful to set the sides against the car, then take one at a time over to the router table to make sure I put the roundover on the correct side. The two sides are mirror images of each other, so you have to take that into consideration, or you'll end up with a roundover on the inside rather than the outside of the panel. The router left a little burning in a few spots, but the cars are going to be painted, so it'll be covered, and there's no need to sand other than to remove a couple of rough spots. I made sure to be aware of how the sides were going to line up before I applied any glue. I used a bottle with a small applicator to apply the glue, then just spread it out with my finger. It's important to get glue to the edges, otherwise there might be gaps when you remove the clamps. There are a number of ways you could clamp these, but the wood vise was convenient and it puts even pressure along the length of the car's body. Now I need to cut the air scoop for the hood and the taillights for the back. I'll attach the scoop before painting and the taillights after. If you can build one or two of these cars without playing with them, you have a lot more willpower than I do. These were fun to build, but they'll be even more fun to play with. I'll leave a link to the plans in the description so you can head to your workshop and get started building. But before you do that, please give me a thumbs up if you like this project. And if you're not ready to head to the shop just yet, a suggestion for another video to watch will pop up on the screen.